Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about the Pythagorean Theorem, which I know we probably don't remember, but maybe some of you do. When we were doing those warm-ups and stuff back when we were in school, this came up a few times in those warm-ups, and I know we went through it a few times there. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of remember back to those, and as we start going, some of this will look a little bit familiar, which is why we did those. Warm-ups a lot, other than obviously reviewing stuff, but to see new things so that when we do get to it, hopefully they're easier. So, and again, a lot of times people hear Pythagorean theorem and they think, oh, this is going to be really hard because it's Pythagorean. The reason it's called that is because the person who discovered this, the person's last name was Pythagoras. Okay, that's the only reason why it's called that. All right, so the equation for it, the formula for it is written down right here: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now there's a few things this for you guys to understand, some vocab type things. Okay, so I drew a right triangle right here as well to show you kind of which side is which in this a, b, and c thing. Okay, so here's how it's going to be labeled. These two sides are going to be A and B. And honestly, it doesn't matter which of those two is A, which one is B. I could have switched it around, it'd be fine. But again, the big thing to remember here is the A and the B, those two sides together make the right angle. Okay? That will always be the case. This is the C value. Okay? That's the side that is always going to be labeled C. All three of these sides have a name. The C value, it's a terrible arrow. The C value is called the hypotenuse. I have no idea where those words come from. It's called the hypotenuse. These two sides, A and B, the two sides that make up the right angle, those are called the legs of the right triangle. Okay, so, and again, remember, it shouldn't matter like if the triangle is sitting nice and neat just like this one, or if it's flipped around or turned or anything like that. Always the two sides that make the right angle are the legs. They are your A and B. And then the side that is not touching the right angle, as you can see, this side right here that I just highlighted, this side right here is not touching the right angle. That side is always the C value. It's always the hypotenuse. Another thing to know about the hypotenuse, it will always be the longest side. It has to be the longest side. So that's a good way to check your answer in the end. Okay, so that when you plug these numbers into your equation, if your C value in your equation at the end is not the longest, is not longer than your A and B, then you know you made a mistake somewhere. Okay? All right. Oh yeah, another kind of nice, neat fact to know about triangles to remember is that if you take any two sides of a triangle and add them up, that has to be more than the third side. Okay, that's just a fact with the triangle. So I could give you three numbers and say, do these three numbers, do these three side lengths, can they make a triangle? All you'd have to do is just add them up and see if especially if the two shorter ones add up to be more than the longest one, and then yes, you know it would be. Okay, but anyway, let's look at a few examples here. So to show you how this works, I think the best thing to do is just to start working some out. So start with the right triangle, and obviously these are sketches. It's not obviously not perfect, but you get the idea. So let's try this. That's supposed to be a question mark. There we go. So let's find this side length. Okay, so when we're doing this, the biggest and most important thing in this a squared plus b squared equals c squared equation, again, is to go back to this in this video. So again, hopefully you're writing this down. If you're not, do it. Pause it and write this picture down and then use it. Because when you're working these problems out, we're going to do with this later, you're going to want to know this picture and have it memorized. And I promise you, after you do a few examples in the video, maybe do a few problems on your own, you're not going to need this anymore. Okay, you're just going to know, it's just going to start working out where you know which side is which and where those things go. So in my equation of a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay, so here's what we got to know is the side that is missing that we're trying to find, that one is not touching the right angle, so I know that's my C value. Okay, so I know this. Let me switch colors. I know this side right here is my C. Okay, this is my A and B. And again, it doesn't matter if I make that A and B or like this. Doesn't matter. Okay, so the two legs, it doesn't matter which one we call which. All right, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So a is 3, so I'm going to do 3 squared plus b squared, b is 4, has to equal c squared. And now as we do this, this should look familiar if you did this stuff from Monday and Tuesday. 3 squared is 9. Excuse me, 4 squared is 16. 9 plus 16 is 25. And now this should look exactly like what we talked about on Monday and what you did hopefully yesterday. On Tuesday for the quizzes thing. How do I solve this? I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay, that'll get rid of the squared there to get c by itself. And c is 5. Now, you might be tempted or thinking, well, I'm going to put plus and minus 5 here. Positive and negative 5. But remember what we're talking about. Okay, and this happens a lot. And again, you'll see this in algebra next year as well. Once you start getting more than one answer for an equation, okay, like this. Yes, if we solve this the correct way, our answer is positive 5 and a negative 5. Okay, but once we put it into a real life type situation or like this, like we're talking about a shape, the answer of negative 5 doesn't make sense. I wouldn't say my triangle has a side length of negative 5. Okay, and that's fine. I'm just not going to put that one. I know my answer is just 5. 5 inches, 5 centimeters, 5 whatever our units would be. Okay, so normally, Monday and Tuesday, when I just give you the equation, yeah, we're going to put plus and minus for the answer. But since we're talking about a side length of a triangle, again, negative numbers don't make sense, so we're just not going to use those in our answer, and our answer is just 5. Okay, let's do a couple more of those real quick. Okay, here's what I'm talking about. So sometimes the triangles might be like turned and flipped around or whatever. Okay, but they should be labeled, meaning the right angle should be labeled for you. Okay, so you should be able to pick it out from there. All right. So here's what we're going to try to find. I'm going to pause here for a second, or maybe even you can pause the video, and if you want to try to set up the equation before I do, that is always something good to try if you think you know what to do. Okay, I'm going to do one more example after this, and you can try to do that same thing for that one too. But anyway, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I know that 5 and 12, since these two sides make up the right angle, I know that's my a and b. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals, I know the question mark, or again, we're trying to find the side that's missing is our c value is our hypotenuse. Okay, and I should have done this about on the last one. Sorry, I just thought of this. And remember on the first one here, while we're finding the c value, and we got 5, and the other two sides are 3 and 4. That's good. My hypotenuse, my c value is 5 is more than 3 and 4, so that's good. So again, here too, I know my answer, my final answer better be more than 5, and it better be more than 12. Okay, otherwise I made a mistake, because the c value has to be the longest side. All right, 25, so 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144. And this is another thing too, by doing these, the more you do these, the better you are at your squareds, your perfect squares, and getting those things and those numbers I would rattle off in class all the time. This is a part where, where I got to kind of memorize them a little bit better is by using them here. But all right, anyway, add these up. That's 169 equals c squared. Take the square root of both sides. Might need a calculator for this, that's fine. Square root of 169 is 13. So my c value is 13. Remember, no negative, because that would not make sense in this problem. Okay, last one I'm going to show you, and then that'll be it for my little video here. Okay, and really kind of the big thing that we can do is mess with the triangle and change it around and that kind of stuff to kind of throw you off of which side is which of A, B, and C. Okay, so again, like I would suggest before, or like I was doing before, I would suggest you pause it and try to set this up here on your own before I do to see if you can do it. Okay, but this one, now notice what we have and notice what we don't have. So the two sides that make up the right angle are these two sides. Okay, so this time I gave you the c value, I gave you the hypotenuse. Okay, so when I set this up, it's going to be 8 squared plus b squared equals 17 squared. Okay, or if you did a squared plus 8 squared equals 17 squared, that's fine too. Okay, that's the nice thing about this, is for A and B, it doesn't matter which is which, either one is right. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this one like this and go through the solving process. So this looks different than the last one, and yeah, it will. Okay, these can look a little bit different because of this, but that doesn't mean it's any more any more difficult or anything like that. So all we got to do is the same thing as we did on the other ones. 8 squared is 64. 17 squared is 289. And now we just got to solve the equation. So to get a squared by itself, I'm going to subtract 64 from both sides. Oops. Okay, and that'll give me a squared equals 225. And now how do a squared, how do I get rid of the squared? Do the square root of both sides. And the square root of 225, again, probably going to want a calculator for that, is 15. Okay, so this side is 15, which is good. That side should be smaller than 17. It should be smaller than my hypotenuse. If I would have got something more than 17, again, I know that should be an indication that I made a mistake, because that cannot be longer than the hypotenuse. Okay? All right, so this skill here, even though it's kind of a small equation, a short equation, it's another one that you won't have to memorize. I remember it would be on any sort of, for a standardized test or an EOC like you'll do next year in algebra, you'll get that. And this right here, you probably won't really see in algebra much at all, but this is super important for when you get to your sophomore level geometry class. Okay, it's from tutoring in geometry and working through it and that kind of stuff. It is, I mean, you use it a ton. That's kind of the basic block for geometry as a sophomore. Okay, so make sure you write these down, and we'll have an assignment over this on tomorrow. Okay, so that would be what? Tomorrow would be Thursday. So we'll have an assignment over this on Thursday of finding the missing side using the Pythagorean theorem. All right, have a good day. Let me know if you need anything.